This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by Bilson's Cordials. But I really wish they were, because they are delicious. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. And this week we have a returning guest. This is the guest. We had the longest break between episodes. He was one of my very first ones back on episode 3, Dawn of the Dad. We're now at episode 22. If that title didn't give it away already, please welcome back my dad, Graeme Chalmers. Welcome back to the show.
Well, I am looking forward to this. I've got to tell you, episode 3, goodness me, it's a lifetime ago. That's potentially more than 23 weeks.
Yeah, I did contemplate. I'm like, do I push it out one more week and make it a flat 20 episodes between? But that seemed pointless, to be honest. But we've been going for almost 6 months now. There've been a couple of gaps in between. But, episode 3 is when you were last on.
I think that I've been looking forward to this. The task you set is nigh impossible because, when you did the first time, you sit there and you're going, my 5 favourite movies. And you're going, well, that's not really true. They're 5 movies that I really like. Because,
oh, no.
No, I'm back.
There we go.
I didn't have a heart attack. It's okay. Because what's really important about selecting movies is that, as we were chatting before, you go through genres, you go through life, and certain things will resonate more than other things. And then when you go back, and that's one of the things. One of the things I like about rewatching movies is a bit like Mrs. Doubtfire. I'll never cease not to like that because Robin Williams was just brilliant, and the characters that he portrays. But it's good when you do this type of discussion because this time, even being prepared, I thought to myself, I better do a little bit of work and be on top of it. And the thing is that it's not hard to forget not certain aspects. You can forget about a whole lot of stuff, especially when you're encroaching on 71. It's a bit hard to believe that I will be 71 in the near future. And just what you've seen of life, and what you've seen not only in movies but in life itself, and trying to remember. I don't know. I often quite surprise myself that I remember as much as I do. The best part is I know where to go home, and I know how to start the car. Although I did have trouble. I got the old Blue Beast out the other day and put the battery in after charging it because it was flat after 12 months sitting on the side of the road. And then I had to remember how to use all the dials, and I thought to myself, this is going to be risky.
Well, I can tell you that I'm now getting to an age where technology is starting to elude me. I've had it at work and I've had it at home. It's one of the reasons why I don't upgrade too many things anymore, because now I upgraded my phone about a month ago, maybe just over a month ago. And I said to the guy in the shop, I'm like, can you guys set this up for me? And he's like, oh, it's really simple. I was like, no, you're in your 20s. I was like, and I know I'm not that old, but things is now start, like my phone doesn't have any buttons on it. And that boggled my mind when it happened. So I'm hitting that age as well.
The worst thing I'm going through at the moment is that the passwords keep on changing, and and I write them down, and then I lost a piece of paper with them. So that was great. But the thing is that I got a new phone and I hadn't had a new phone call for quite some time, so I have one of those Van Dangles Supermax Pro 13.
Oh, you got the same one as me.
Same as you, yes, indeed. And I had, in my creative days, put 2 passwords to open up the phone. Some magical way I've done that. No one understands how I did it, and I can't tell them, so that's it. But then I had, when downloading all my information, it wouldn't let me do it because some of them were under a different password. So I had to work it all out. And I think it was about a week, and I just sat there one day and going, because I couldn't use my phone.
Mm.
I really couldn't use my phone. And then all of a sudden, it was like putting the 20 cents in the machine, and I just kept on putting more 20 cents in the machine until it worked. And now it works pretty much properly. The guy said to me, "Oh, it's quite simple." I said, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm nearly 71." And I said, "It's not simple." And I said, "And it's never going to be simple anymore."
This guy, I imagine, probably wasn't born in the 80s, which is exactly what we're here to talk about today, the 1980s. Now, unlike most of my guests... Get me
back on track, I'll get lost, you know that.
Did you like that segue?
I did. I thought that was... I could have written that down and go, wow, that was smooth.
I've been doing it for a couple of months now, so I'm getting used to my segues. Of course, we've just called it out very publicly, so now everyone knows exactly what I've done. Yeah. But that's fine. Unlike
James's way of getting you back on track.
Unlike most of my previous guests who were born in the late 80s or later, you actually not grew up, but you lived through the 80s.
I did.
One thing we've been discussing with everyone is, I suppose, not just the cultural significance of the 80s, but any personal significance as well. Obviously me being born in the tail end, I associate a lot of my love of film from there because most of the movies I was shown growing up from you and Mum to a certain extent came from the 80s. A lot of the music I heard was from the 80s, but probably more 70s, to be fair. And of course, probably my biggest love from the 80s was the video store. That's when the video store kind of was created, and by the time I was 5 or 6 in the 90s, that's when we started becoming regular attendees there. So what did the 80s mean to you?
So what did we work out how old I was? 30.
So we said before we started recording that the decade of movies I'm enjoying now is equal to what you were going through in the 80s. You were in your 30s in the 80s, and I'm in my 30s now. Yeah,
I would have been a trendsetter in the 80s, I must imagine. Moving a groover and a shaker and a wobbler. But the 80s was one of those decades where I can say that because I'm just about, I'm into the 7th decade. The first 20 years of your life is all about, it's like buying a piece of equipment, and you have to go through that piece of equipment and work it out till you get it to work the way you want it to work. And it's a bit like life, you experience a whole lot of stuff, probably the mid-20s going into the 30s was a fairly amazing time, and the reason why, and like I am a comedian freak. I love comedy. Mm-hmm. I love British comedy more than any other comedy in the world. Americans haven't got comedy except for a couple of people. The thing, and I've always said this. One thing I can't stand about comedy these days is that unless you can swear, you can't tell a joke.
American comedy, for the most part, I do like American comedy, and I will defend a little bit, but it is quite abrasive. Yeah. American comedy is very loud and in your face, whereas British comedy, I find, is a bit more nuanced.
I think, look, there's a lot of American stuff. I mean, I was watching Matilda the other night, and you sit there and go, it's just one of those movies you sit there and laugh at and thinking the characters in there are amazing, but I think the different thing with the Poms is that they really have. It doesn't matter what they do. I mean, for as long as I can remember, if you watched anything at my age, if I was, watching anything on telly, Kenny Everett and, all these sort of guys were going in. They were on the edge of getting, I think the word would have been used in those days, racy,
Yeah.
saucy. And so you probably saw more on TV in those days than you see in TV, well, not so much these days. But it was their humour was always edgy. And a Carry On series is an example of that. Not everything was like that, but there were certain things. So what I remember of the 80s for me was just the amount of movies that were being made, and like you had your SNL group, which were people who had a common interest and thread in the movies that they were in. They may not have all been, when I say all of them, there was, you had your key players, but then there was the others. I mean, if we think about John Belushi and when he walked around the cemetery saying goodbye to everyone, and they were the only ones that were left. And, it's a bit like Monty Python, that 6 players in that series, going back to the very start with Monty Python, and you had, the animated introduction, the Flying Circus. And the Flying Circus was my first introduction into really not abstract, but that the show always opened with a whole range of little characters and little animations, which I used to just sit there and love it. And sit and watch it, because it was one of the features, and no one was doing anything like that. And each member of the cast that was of Monty Python brought something special to it. We know how John Cleese brought a lot of special things to it, and later on. But it's,
the brilliance of that show is tapping into the anger of a young John Cleese. Like, there's nothing funnier to me to this day than, late 20s, early 30s John Cleese absolutely furious. Like, that's like, I think of in that, now something completely different, when he plays Mongo the chef and he starts trying to cut people up with the cleaver. Or when he's running the self-defense class where everyone has to protect themselves from fruit and he's just yelling at people. That, to me, is the pinnacle of hilarity. You mentioned the Pythons, and you mentioned SNL before, obviously, with Chevy Chase and John Belushi. Where do you sit on something like Second City, which, gave us Rick Moranis and John Candy and a couple others like that? Were you ever a Second City guy, or?
Not really.
Yep.
Not really. And look, whilst I liked the work they did, it wasn't something, I guess, when we talk about that, it was probably at a time in my life where I was probably working all the time at night.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, that'll do it every day. But because, like in my younger years, the guys I hung around with were all crazy freaks of Monty Python. And, you do little, you'd be sitting around the table and you'll all be having a crack about, what was on TV. And it's just, excuse me, those sort of things that were special. I go back to the English humour, and Fish Called Wanda, is another an example of John Cleese just in his little. I'm right, aren't I? Yes.
Yeah, John Cleese. I'm just being quiet because I've only seen it once, and I was probably far too young to see it when I did. So I haven't gone back to it, but I know John Cleese.
It's worthwhile going back to, because of, the characters in it, and being in the in the back blocks of England, and then you just the thing, the fish tank, and the guns and all this sort of stuff. And
Jamie Lee Curtis is in it as well, isn't she?
Jamie Lee Curtis, exactly.
She was in a movie I watched last night as well.
What was she in?
Oh, I just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
Which is a film that came out this year about a Chinese immigrant family, and a middle-aged mum who's kind of about to go through a divorce, and then she accidentally steps and breaks the universe and starts seeing all of her different lives in all these different universes, and it becomes like an action comedy. But Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and the I can't remember his name now, but the actor who played Short Round in Temple of Doom, he plays her husband.
Oh, okay.
It's really good. It's probably my favorite film of the year so far.
I think she actually is probably understated, in particularly if not from a comedy point of view. She's very good.
She's good in everything. I haven't seen it. Even if I don't like a film that she was in, she's always good.
She is good. She really is.
She's still doing Halloween films. She's been in the last two. She's come back to make more Halloween movies. So
I'm not sure how old. I know she's older than me. She never rang me up. I sent her a message.
She's great in them as well. She's really good in them.
No, that's the thing, is that it doesn't look forced or unnatural. It just, she just jumps into the cast and that's it. It's great. But it's a bit when we talk about, the different sort of. I hoped when I was picking my group of movies to watch, I was trying to be a little bit. I was going to say smart. Hang on, my screen's decided to play havoc on me, and thank you very much. It's a bit like I was looking over, which is one thing we won't be talking about, but I was looking at. No, we will be, because did I put down Blues Brothers? I did, didn't I?
You did put down Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
You're the first person to put down Blues Brothers, except for me, for the 80s. I put down in my top 5 80s films of all time as well. So
when I was looking at the Blues, I remember when we talked about this last time, as in characters, and that there was a guy that I mentioned, and his name was Henry Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry Gibson was in Laugh-In, which was a comedy show, and everyone used to stand on looking at a door on a big screen, and you might have 20 people, and they all interacted. And Henry Gibson was one of these. I didn't know, because I actually wanted to talk about him. He was born in 1935.
Okay.
And when you see him on screen, he doesn't look that old.
He plays the Nazi leader.
That's the one.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. And you just sit there and you watch this guy.
He's the one. I think he's painting the Iron Eagle or something like that. He's the one in the office when they come to realize they have to roll out the troops. Okay.
Yeah, going over the bridge. I loved them. They stood there. And Henry Gibson was one of these guys that the thing that was amazing about him was that at the 30, when he was born in 1935, so he would be 65 now, 65, 75, 85, 87. I don't know whether he's still alive.
No, he passed away in 2009.
There you go. But he was he was probably good with timing. And a huge expression on face, but just looked like Mr. Innocence. But what was more, I wanted to get some facts and figures on the Blues Brothers. Because
is that where we're starting? We're going to start with Blues Brothers in terms of
I think we will. Now that I'm there, we might start there. Did you ever know how many are in the cast?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, they do that credit scene, and you got so many cameos from musicians, like blues and soul musicians.
It was something when I went to have a look at it, and I'm thinking to myself, "Holy hell, Batman!" Like just about anyone that was in it. You had the Blues Brothers band, which that in itself was fairly important, but. And then you had the people who were on Saturday Night Live, Carrie Fisher and the thing. But like a person like Twiggy. Yeah. These were the things that sort of, like the cameo roles that came in. Ashaka Khan, she was the singer. Joe Walsh. I'm assuming it's the same Joe Walsh. I'm pretty sure it was. But he was a musician. But out of left field. The
You got Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles,
John Lee Hooker.
So good. John Candy,
Ray Charles. Cab Calloway.
Yes.
One of the most iconic actors in that show. Dan Aykroyd, Kathleen Freeman.
Yeah.
And
Frank Oz, Charles Napier.
And it's Steven Spielberg was in it.
Yeah, he plays the guy. He plays the guy at the top of the building when they're trying to make the payment. Yeah.
So when you see, like how they ever got that thing made is beyond me. Because with that many people in it, and then on the other side of it, I had to find out how many cars were lost.
Well, they had the record. I think it's been broken since, but at one point they had the record for the most cars destroyed in a car chase in any film.
104.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I know later on, and we won't talk too much about the sequel, but I know later on they did try to mimic it, but I don't think they quite hit the numbers of the first one.
The second one.
Yeah, it was 2000.
Yeah, I haven't even wanted to mention it. Look, I think a lot of people wanted to see it because it was like going back and seeing John Belushi, but it never lived up to that. The only thing is that I broke my watch. Yeah, but the whole storyline, and even when you watch it, I haven't seen it for a little while, and I'll probably try and see it again soon. But when John Belushi comes out of prison, and Dan Aykroyd's just an absolute nerd.
Yeah,
pretty much just a nerd with a briefcase and walks around like he's Look, they're the sort of things that when you talk about movies, is that it's not important, but gee, it makes a difference.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I remember I watched it recently, probably not last year, I don't think, but the year before. So it was after Zoe was born, and it was when I was on weird sleep schedules. I used to be up from 8 p.m. till 3 a.m. watching Zoe while Tina slept. And so I was just going through a huge rewatch phase. I was like, I'm too tired to watch new things, but I'll rewatch old movies. And I rewatched Blues Brothers. And for the first time ever, it struck me that they are nerds. Like when I was a kid, I was like, these guys are cool. But as an adult, I was like, oh, these guys are kind of jerks. Like I'm just like, they're not really like. I guess their mission is honorable, but they're not honorable people at all. Like they're really like I'm not surprised everyone's after them. I kind of agree with the police.
It was, and look, it takes you on a journey. Like did you ever pick up the name of the nun that was in charge of the orphanage?
Oh, I can't remember. I had
Stigmata.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, Mary Stigmata. So Mary.
That's genius. I mean, that's clever writing. That's great.
It's a thing that excuse me, just trying to break up the atmosphere, particularly in my room. I think that was the thing that is writing the script and being able to drag things in. And it's, so Sister Mary Stigmata, and I'm going, well, Mary Magdalene, and here we go, they're having a crack. But do you know something about this show?
Tell me.
It's been approved by the Vatican.
Yes, I did know this. This is a few years ago. The Pope the Pope gave it admitted it to me like this is a film that like promotes the Catholic Church, was like the Catholic Church, is on its message like fits the beliefs of the church, something like that. Like they were kind of like, this is something that should be watched.
Brutality.
Yeah, Nazis.
Slapping little kids down.
I'm just thinking of John Belushi falling down the stairs.
Hit him over the head. I'm in a bad way.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I'll be all right. If I stop talking, just knock on my head and see if I'm all right.
We're talking about cast. We didn't talk about James Brown, who has maybe one of the most iconic scenes in that film.
I think, yeah. Look, and everything about James Brown came out in that movie. You know, his dance steps. I mean, he was a very flexible person, and he played that role extremely well. Reverend
Cleophas James.
Cleophas James.
I remember as a child, I did not. That was my least favorite song, but as an adult, it's really good.
I think. Look, there's things. I mean, you know, Minnie the Moocher.
So good.
You know, but Cap Calloway, when they're doing that big presentation on the stage, you know, and he's just walking up and down with his walking stick, and he go, and I think there are so many elements in this movie. You know, we talked about Henry Gibson as the Nazi officer, who's just a little bit scary, and then you think about the going through the tunnels, getting back to the stage,
Yeah,
you know, and the chases through there. But you know, like Carrie Fisher was very good in this show as well.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, just one of those people who, you know, it does. They leave little imprints in your head. You can't help it. I mean, Aretha Franklin blows it out of the water.
That whole sequence, you know,
yeah,
and it's not her most popular song. Like, she saves that one for the sequel. She comes back. She does think in this one. She does Respect in the second one.
Yeah.
But that whole number just in the little diner, you know, they're just sitting down, reading their paper, and they'll do a very casual dance move and then return to the chairs.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always think of the tall one. I won't do the accent, but the tall one was dry white toast, nothing on it. And the short one wants 4 fried chickens and a Coke. And Matt Murphy knows exactly who they're talking about straight away.
Yeah. And I think, and that's it. I mean, some of these things you couldn't do anymore. You know.
Yeah.
You know, and look, I won't discuss it tonight, but you know, and sadly, and there's a bit of a backlash. But you know, we often talk about the woke society, but and you know, I was talking to Sarah yesterday or the day before, and the things you can't say anymore because it's offensive. It's only offensive if you use it not in the way that it was deemed for. It's like having, you know.
I actually think Blues Brothers is pretty okay. I watched.
No, that's okay. There's probably 1 or 2 things that come up.
Because I remember, because I watched it, and whilst I was surprised that they weren't, I was like, oh, they're not really nice guys. I was like, oh, this actually holds up. The one I struggled with was Animal House. That one's got some jokes, and I was like, oh, that's pretty tough to get by today. And it was not about being woke or not woke, but there's just some stuff, and I was like, oh, this is a bit creepy, a bit gross.
And that's the thing. But what I am offended by is that we have to ban all these things, and that's to me, when a movies are going to offend you in some shape or form. It doesn't matter what it is, because we don't all have the same tastes. But
my thing with movies has always been, it's been like this since probably since I was 18, maybe earlier. First of all, I think that Australia has, and this is not like a flex or a brag, I think we have the best rating system for movies in the world. Like, I think, you know, our GPGMMAR, I think, is perfectly executed. The US is really strange.
I've got no idea.
But I think our rating system is good. And my opinion has been, look, it's given a rating, check the rating.
Yep.
If you go in, like, you know what you're getting yourself into. There's a warning there for a reason. It's like when, you know, parents complain about children playing violent video games, but they pay for the violent video game. It's like, look at it. Like, you know, you're an adult. You know what I mean? And that's what, I remember I was talking to someone recently, and apparently a lot of people were offended, or there was some backlash about the new Thor movie. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen Thor, because one of the characters has cancer in it. And people were like, oh, you should have told us that they had cancer before we went into it, because, you know, what if someone we know...
One of my favourite movies, Anne Hathaway is a brilliant actress.
You're going to say Love and Other Drugs?
Love and Other Drugs.
Still haven't seen it, but I will get to it.
Well, I'm very disappointed, James. Goodness gracious, mate. One of the, you know, this is all about, if you want to see something, anyone out there is listening to this, you can send me messages. I only charge $50 for a response, and that's the way I pay for my food. Only joking. Anne Hathaway is pretty gorgeous too. Let me tell you, it's very easy to look at her. She's a very attractive young lady, but she's also a brilliant actress, and she plays the role. I'll spoil it. I won't do it. And one of the things about this role that she plays is that the drugs that she needs are Pfizer, and we all know about Pfizer.
We do these days, yeah.
I won't go into it, but it's one of those movies, and I'll go over to you again, James. You have to see it because it's relevant. It's relevant on what we're seeing and what we deal with, and people who, I have my own perception. I'm going to have another injection because going back to work. One of the reasons why I was off work for the last 2 weeks with this last condition is that it's very contagious. So if I was to work in the front door of a hospital, I could do some serious damage. And so you've got to take the drugs. And, I think a lot of people, had heart attacks or got sick for different reasons. Now, it'd be an unwise person to say it's because of this, this and this. But it just means you just got to be a bit more cautious and make sure you do your homework when it's done. But Love and Other Drugs is a movie that touches difficult subjects. And
that's what art's about. Like I was talking about the Thor movie with a friend of mine because he mentioned that there'd been some backlash, which I was shocked by.
Yeah.
I was like, but that's the point. Like that's why we watch movies. Like, yes, to be entertained, but we get to see sides of humanity that we might not see in day-to-day life. We get to experience different emotions, and we get to, it's most of the time is fictional, and that's a good, like, not the cancer is fictional, obviously, but like we watch these things because they take us to a place we wouldn't necessarily be able to go ourselves. It's an escape, but it's also just connects us to humanity a bit more.
I think the important thing is that what it does do is opens up the opportunity for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does that, then it's achieved one of the things that that they would have been thinking about. We were talking earlier about Olivia Newton-John and the Cancer Centre, the Wellness Centre over in Heidelberg. If it wasn't for the work that she did to get that wellness centre open, a lot of people would have just died. As we've discussed before, we're all going to die. What we're trying to do is just try to extend it as long as possible, so that
and that's the cheery message we really want to leave people with today: is you're going to die.
You're going to die. And I'm very good at talking about this.
So
subject.
watch Blues Brothers.
Watch Blues Brothers.
Before we close the book on Blues Brothers, I know you got 4 more movies to talk about.
Yep.
I feel like we need to talk about the Mr. Fabulous sequence, which is in the restaurant when they're trying to get their trumpeter back and they're throwing chicken nuggets through the air and John Belushi's harassing the family. It's probably the standout sequence for me. I don't know where you sit with this for you in the movie.
I think, once again, when we talk about this movie, is there's so much in it. You can watch it 3 or 4 times and still not see everything that's in it. You talk about it's excellent. If you talk about that scene where they're all on the street and they've gone into the music store.
So
you know what I mean?
Like that's a great scene. And then I just remembered Murph and the Magic Tones, when they go to get them and they're playing in this like dive bar where there's no audience whatsoever.
We have escaped. What about when the Blues Brothers are on the road and they go to the place where they're playing in a cage?
Bob's Country Bunker, that's also great. Like it's it's solid.
See the thing, and that's the thing about this movie. I mean, it was in a huge cast, so they had that much opportunity to use that cast the way they needed to. But from the point of view of the amount of things that they covered in it, that are memorable. The reason, is it a great movie?
Yes, the answer is yes.
I reckon it's pretty good, and from those humble beginnings between Sister Mary Stigmata and ruler, and they're going to try and make her some money. I think how much, whatever it was, about $5,000 or $10,000 or something, because they're going to close the place down, and everything in between. It's just, yeah. I think it's a cult movie.
It is. It absolutely is. But what I found is, because I remember, and I talked about this when I did my list a few weeks back, I said that I was the weird kid at school because everyone was listening to popular music on the radio. Everyone was seeing modern movies. And I was watching this worn out VHS of Blues Brothers be taped off the TV over and over again, listening to the one soundtrack in the car and over again. No one knew what I was talking about. And then when I started studying film in high school and later in university, that's when I met all the other weirdos who had also been raised on it. And I was like, oh, it is a cult film. And now that film, when I was a kid, film wasn't something that people talked about the way they do now. Like, people went to the movies and they just went on with their lives. But now there's such a focus, this is one of millions of podcasts about movies. But like now that as I get older, I'm like, oh, people have found this movie. People have found Blues Brothers. And it's a very common language if you know where to look. If you meet the right people, you can talk in the language of Blues Brothers. And people know what you're saying. And that audience is much larger now than it ever was, when I was a kid. But yeah, it is a cult film, but it is a great film.
And the sequel never lived up to that.
I haven't watched the sequel in quite a while. The last time I saw it, I would have still been a kid, maybe late teens. It's been over 10 years since I've watched it, so I'm sure it's not great. But it does have a really good soundtrack, and that's probably the most important thing.
And they shoot him up pretty good in that scene in the club. There was hardly that's what I call that my water feature moment. There's enough build. You could have put a tanker of water in that building and it just would have leaked everywhere. And the other things that when you sit about what was a special moment in the movie, too many.
Yeah.
And whilst the movie itself will age, the movie won't age from where it was when it first started. And that's what's amazing about it. And the characters that are in it, you go back and you say, Dan Aykroyd, just a nerd. just a nerd. And then you go back, because when they did the Bumblebee, or they did the sketches on SNL, and they had the suit, that little briefcase with
the handcuff,
with a handcuff to it, like it wasn't going anywhere. But they're the things that all movies have parts that you go with it. Love and Other Drugs is one of those where it's just poignant. And the journey is great. I could watch that, frequently, because it's just a story. And sometimes stories like that are very good for us, sometimes hard for us. What do you want to talk about now?
Your choice. So Blues Brothers, great one. You're the only person who's brought up Blues Brothers aside from me. It was on my 80s list as well. And so when I talked about it, Tina hasn't seen it. So when I was talking about it, she was just kind of like, you'll have to tell me about it because I haven't seen it. So I couldn't sell it anywhere near as well as you've just sold it. And because we both speak the language, as I mentioned, it was a much easier conversation to have. Not downplaying Tina's interview skills at all. She was great. She just hasn't seen the movie. Your choice, your list. What I love is I've seen pretty much everything on your list, and you've brought some new ones as well, which is great.
I have, and I did that purposely. I'm going to talk about Rain Man.
No one has talked about Rain Man yet. This is the first time the Rain Man's come up. Fantastic film. Tell me about Rain Man.
There is a female in the cast. Do you know who she is?
Oh, I don't have to talk about it. I actually just bought Rain Man like 2 weeks ago, but I haven't watched it since I was about 18.
She's an Italian actress called Ballerina.
Yes.
And she's in
Hot Shots.
Good. Hot Shots, exactly. She's been in Hot Shots. And talk about going from the sublime to the ridiculous. There you are. Um, she's getting on in age, but she
As we all are.
yeah. We won't talk about that. Thanks, James. The the some names you never hear of, or you never think about, but she's quite, like, she does a bit of writing, a bit of directing, and what have you. And you wonder how they come to choices to put people. I mean, it's not like, I don't, she fitted in well. But that cast itself, I mean, this is another one with a huge cast in it, but it's really the main people, and Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise. I just recently saw Top Gun 2, if that's what they called it.
Maverick, yeah. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, and and I've got to say to you that, excuse me, I'm back. The thing that really amazed me about, when I watched some of the movies that he's in, he's actually a very good actor.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely. I've always considered him more of a movie star, but when he does come to play, like, he's fantastic. I always think of Collateral. Rain Man's another one. Rain Man is a great movie.
Yeah, and that's it. The thing that was, look, the reason why I actually chose this is because there's a person with autism in it, or that's what the story's about. And just recently, looking on, I'm good with this thing called TikTok. I'm yet to do something, but I'll probably before I pass it.
I haven't, remember before I said I'm not very good with technology. TikTok is not somewhere I've ventured into. I've decided I'm done with social media. I'll use the ones I've got, and that'll be about it, I think.
Well, yes, it's one of those things, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say, but I'll come back to that.
Well, Rain Man has Dustin Hoffman plays an autistic character. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, he, I think, autism. The thing is that, just recently on TikTok, there's been a young girl who's been doing some comedy, who's got cerebral palsy, and there's all of a sudden there's been a few extra being starting to make their move on TikTok, and genuinely very funny and very good, and that's not being, it's more about people getting opportunity to be who they are, and demonstrating that in a way which is respectful.
Well, there's a British comedian, you're talking about British comedians before, called Rosie Jones. I think she might have cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy?
I'm not sure. I don't want to assume. No, it is cerebral. It is cerebral palsy. Because she has a very delayed speech. But she's hilarious. Very, very funny.
There was a young kid on Britain's Got Talent, and as a young boy, probably 14 or 15, hilarious. Hilarious. Go on.
So I was going to bring it back to Rain Man. So,
yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm on my way back. So the storyline, I guess, at the end of the day, is about brothers who, one who's wealthy and doesn't worry about too many other people, and the other one has got autism. And as I said earlier to you, is that this is a hard movie to watch,
and probably a hard one to make today. Like, you're talking about the woke audience before, and there are some people, and it's a very small portions of the film watching community, who, unless the character, unless the actor has the disease that the character has, they feel like they shouldn't be in there. And films have been cancelled because of this. Like the company's like, you know what, we just don't want to deal with this. Let's cancel the film. And what happens is then you don't get that light shone on that issue at all. So it's happened a few times in the past. It is a tough film to watch, but really, really good. And would be a tough one to make today.
It's only tough because it's, you're actually being confronted with things that you probably haven't been aware of or whatever. I had a student who had was torn with autism, and hard in it for me as a teacher in my area, is working through how you can bring people in and not actually scare them, they're out of their wits because of their conditions. But Dustin Hoffman was brilliant, and when you sit there and you just, I don't know. I think it's a good wake-up show to watch. We go on. One of the things I was going to say earlier was that one of the things that we were talking about the rating system, and I think you're pretty right. I think it's pretty good. What I don't like is that we don't use the rating system when we have censorship, which says we can't watch that. No rating, we just can't watch it. And the whole idea of censorship,
I agree,
or having a rating, was you make up your mind.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there have been some films where I remember there are a couple of films, I won't go into the particulars, I won't list them, but they were banned for certain reasons. But I was like, look, I'm never going to watch that movie. But even still, like, should people be given the choice to watch it? Like, if they want to watch something that nasty and horrible, like, that's up to them. But like, it is just a movie at the end of the day. So like, if they want to say it, they should be allowed to.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things where, you sit there and someone who, in their own strange mind, believes that they've got more capacity to make a decision for people than the people who either want to or don't want to watch it, and that's when censorship is so set. Look, I read back when I was about 17 or 18, it was a huge issue in Melbourne, huge issue, and people. Some movies you wouldn't see because they just say no, you can't watch it. The board would sit down and go, we can't watch that. Well, at the end of the day, not your choice. If I want to watch it, I'll watch it. If I don't want to watch it, I won't watch it. But I think that they probably let the reins go in some areas, but there's still that worry. This one was good. I mean, the storyline's really about him being in a home, and there was money owing to him or to be given to him, and I won't go down the storyline too hard, but in the end, Tom came down to say hello in his Lamborghini and how you going, and all of a sudden, over a period of time, it was a difficult. That's the difficult thing, is that you see how people get treated, and how this was all working out. And we can say, well, it all came out in the wash. It's not one of those things that you really want to talk too much about, but it's a movie that you really need to see, because I think what it shows us is that regardless, people are very, very quick to judge. I'm reasonably outspoken, and I don't care. I don't care about what people think about what I say, because everyone has a choice to talk about things the way they see it, and that's why we've got freedom of speech, thank goodness. And you can say it. You don't want to do anything to be disrespectful or hurtful, but at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't say what you think, as long as it's not damaging. But at the end of the day, these are, the difficulty in this movie was that the storylines was great, and to see how frustration. You've seen it, James.
Yeah, a long time ago. Like, the last time I watched, I was a teenager. We actually studied it for English, and I was thrilled. It's like the quality of movies we're watching in school has definitely stepped up. So as I said, I just bought it again. I just bought it recently. I did a huge order, and because I definitely want that in my collection. I want to go back and see it. I actually don't even know if Tina's seen it. She probably has. But yeah, it's a solid flick. I always think of the casino scene, obviously, one of the most famous scenes, the card counting, and then of course the Qantas scene, which I was telling you before.
You can say it, James. You can.
Yeah, where Dustin Hoffman's character doesn't want to fly because planes can crash. And Tom Cruise is like, well, they're safe, don't worry. But every plane's crashed. There's no airline that hasn't crashed at some point. He's like, no, Qantas. Qantas has never crashed. So Tom Cruise is like, Qantas? You want to fly Qantas? To fly Qantas, we have to go to Melbourne, Australia. You understand? Melbourne, Australia. We're not going on Qantas. And that's when they have to rent the car and drive across country. It's solid.
Yeah.
It's a very funny movie as well. Like, I know you said it's tough to watch and is confronting, and certainly is. But just watching that dynamic and watching the journey that Tom Cruise's character has to go on to kind of learn to accept his brother, and understand what it's like to have someone close to you undergoing some of this. There is a lot of very natural humor. Like, Dustin Hoffman's character has never played for laughs, although he can be funny. And there are moments when he interacts with women, and because of the autism, he's not very good socially, so he doesn't really know how to interact. So they are kind of played for laughs there, but just that general, it's almost like he's the straight man and Tom Cruise is just reacting to everything.
Yes.
So there's a lot of awkward humor there, but it is quite a funny film. And again, I haven't watched it in a long time, so maybe I'll watch it tomorrow and I'll be like, oh my goodness, this is really offensive. But to the best of my knowledge, it isn't. It's actually just quite a strong portrayal. And quite funny whilst, addressing some serious subject matter, which is a hard line to walk.
A long trip in the car.
That's it. Nice one. Strong second choice. What is next on your list?
What's next on the list? It's funny, isn't it? You sort of go, growing up, I have to say that I loved Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Such a good film. It's come up quite a few times.
But we're not talking about that one.
We're not.
No, we're not. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, was the first one.
Yes, it is.
And it took you out of your lounge room and into a whole new world, and and the school, the professor and his room, and the journeys were just amazing. And you sit there and you're spellbound by it, because it's a little bit of magic, and we all need a little bit of magic in our life. And the journeys that he went on. The second one was called what, James?
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom. That was the third one.
No, that's the second one. Third one's Last Crusade.
Thank you very much. Thank you for getting me out of trouble. Anyone's listening to this, I actually didn't do that to make him look good.
He said, he goes, we're going to do a bit in the show where I let you look good. And I was like, all right, no worries.
The Temple of Doom. Once again, it's one of those, not a huge cast. I mean, it was a huge cast, but there's only some key people in it. And you sit back, and every time when they got the next one up, you couldn't wait to go and see it. Now, this was at a time where going to the movies was good, because the theatres used to be pretty much packed or reasonable. Not like now, a new movie comes out and there's 6 people in there.
Well, we are living post-COVID. Like, when I was going to the cinema regularly before COVID and before I had a child, if I went on a Friday or a Saturday, it was a full house. I think, while we're still getting back to, in defense of the theater culture right now, I think, we hopefully will see that go back to normal. When I went to Spider-Man at Christmas time, cinema was full.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what's the big thing here? We've got a little boy in this one.
Short Round, who has
a very... How old was he in that, James?
He was in Goonies around the same time, so he would have been maybe 12 or 14. I'll look it up for you. Yeah. Now, Short Round, unfortunately, is probably the most problematic part of this film because he wasn't treated very well. The only defense you can make of it is that Will is set in the 30s, and minorities were not treated very well. But even still, It is a bit problematic, but it's not. But he is great in it. Let's have a look. He was born in 1971. The film came out in 84, so he was 13.
Yeah.
He would have been 12 when they shot it.
It was one, yeah, but like why he didn't. It's hard to say he didn't take a key role. He was actually featured. He was pretty important to the storyline,
Mm-hmm.
and it was sort of, and you're right. I mean, it could be something to do with the age that it was made in. But interesting, and of course, a short round. I liked it because it sort of resembles me. Short round. I just take that opportunity before someone thinks I can do it. I've done it. This one was a bit of a cult movie too, like in the sense that it was talking about black magic and all sorts of stuff. And you sit there and you're going, this stone was important. They have a lot of stones and things that they need to find, don't they?
It is my look. I will say this, even though it's not my favorite Indiana Jones film, I think Raiders is a perfect movie.
Oh, absolutely.
This has my favorite villain. I've talked about this a lot on the show in the past. Any movie where there's a cult in the middle of it, I'm all about it. And this is a death cult where they steal hearts from people.
Yep.
I'm all about that.
And me choosing this movie and not taking Raiders or Lost Ark, Raiders was there. You don't really need to do anything.
So we've actually had two other people talk about Indiana Jones on the show before today. We've now covered each film. One person chose Raiders, one person chose Last Crusade. You've chosen Temple of Doom. So the entire trilogy has been mentioned.
So there you go. And the thing is, and you're quite right, it goes left to centre and goes into areas where people sometimes go, it does talk about child slavery and it does talk about human sacrifice and all those lovely things, not the child slavery. What is one key feature of these three movies, James?
I know you're leading somewhere, but I'm not sure where you are trying to take me.
George Lucas.
George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, absolutely, combined.
And how many times have they combined, James, over the years?
They've done 4 Indiana Jones films together. Neither of them are involved in the new one, as far as I know. Number 5, I think, is a different director altogether. I don't know what else they did together. I know they've done a lot of separate projects. I don't think they've done anything. I could be wrong, and I'll have it wrong, but I don't think they did anything else together aside from these ones.
It's interesting, isn't it? They both bring something. I mean, George Lucas is he's a character, but he's not in the movie. But he brings something to certain movies that it's just him. The Indiana Jones, as I said, I always just look at, when he's just sitting in as a professor in that room, it felt very regal and important, and him stamping his authority about how it was going to go, and all of a sudden he's out there in the dust and the dirt and under canvas and all sorts of stuff. Very exciting. It's like a good holiday place.
I just keep thinking of when they're eating the jellied reptiles. I think there's a snake, which Indy isn't too thrilled about eating. One thing about this film that I love, there's a little, it's kind of a joke, but it's also just kind of a little inside joke, I suppose. A little reference is there's that whole sequence at the start where Harrison Ford's in the white suit with the red flower. And the reason for that, and I don't know how many people know this, is that Steven Spielberg reached out to the Broccoli family and was like, hey, I'd love to direct the next James Bond film. And the Broccoli family were like, oh, no, sorry. Like, we'll only let British directors do I think it was British directors. For whatever reason, they declined. Like, no, we don't want you to direct this James Bond film. So Spielberg was like, right. Well, in the next Indiana Jones film, he's going to be dressed like James Bond. And so he's just exactly like Sean Connery was, I think, I want to say Dr. No, but I could be wrong. I just thought that was a fun little joke.
But that's something, isn't it? Like you pick up these little things that just add a different dimension to a movie, or the story's got nothing to do with it. Just a little quirky.
Just a little bit of fun, yeah.
A little bit of fun. and that's good that you can actually don't have to do a movie, directly by the letter of the law. Just go out and do it, and if you can have some fun, then by all means, as long as the integrity of the movie is not destroyed, then it's all right. So this one here, this is as you said, not necessarily the best one of the three, but certainly one that you have to see it.
They're all good. I recently made a comment, which I'm going to retract on a previous episode where I said I don't need the sequels. I said I only need Raiders of the Lost Ark. But now that you're talking me through it again, it's like I do like it. I do like it, even though it's not my favorite. I do like it. And even Last Crusade, which was probably my least favorite of the three, Nick Owen convinced me to go back and rewatch it, and now I'm going to go back and rewatch it. So even though I'm going to retract that statement about saying I don't need the sequels, because I do actually want to watch both of them again now. So I've been convinced.
I think this movie actually, when you think this was made back in the 80s, I think it grossed $43 million, which a lot of movies these days don't make $43 million.
The smaller ones don't, but those big ones are hitting.
Oh, yeah, but don't talk about the big ones.
But that's also $43 million in 80s dollars, which is
that's right,
two to three times the amount.
Yeah, 120, 130 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relative. But look, at that time too, when we're talking about movies, this is escapism.
Mm-hmm.
And when people go to a movie, they don't want to be enlightened. They don't want to change the world. Not always. Maybe the next day. But this is one. That's what I really liked about it. Where you just could get out of your normal thing, going, geez, I wouldn't mind putting that hat on. It's a bit sneaky. I would look smooth in that hat. But, yeah. So there we are, number 3. Where
Excellent.
will we go from here?
It is up to you. It is your list.
So let me think. What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. I want to just do this and yes. Beetlejuice.
This movie has come up a lot. I think you're the third or fourth person to mention it, and I'll say this for the third or fourth time. Still haven't seen it. Still haven't seen Beetlejuice. It's the only one on your list I haven't seen.
Beetlejuice is something that I probably wouldn't have rushed out to see initially. It's a bit like Little Shop of Horrors in some way. It's sort of, crazy characters and all sorts of things, and but a great cast.
Oh, yeah. Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Winona Ryder.
Yeah, and I think I fell in love with Rowena Wyner. I can't
Winona
say
Ryder? Yeah.
Yeah. I gave her a rating of hot.
She's easy to fall in love with. I think I watched. So I haven't seen Beetlejuice, but I did see Edward Scissorhands when I was a teenager, and even Mr. Deeds, which is a film that a lot of people don't think about. That came out in 2003, and she's probably in her 30s at that point. But I was like, yeah, like she's just so lovable. Like she's just very, and I don't mean that like, oh, she's hot. Like she's obviously a very attractive woman even today. But I was just like, she's just so easy.
Don't worry about that. She was hot.
Very easy, she's has a very warm presence.
Yeah.
Ironically, Beetlejuice, what I understand, not the case. She's quite closed off and standoffish in this film. But
I think that's what really draws you to her character. It's is that she takes a stand against her family. In the sense that they want to do something and she doesn't want that to happen, and then she's getting she can actually see. Should I say too much? I don't want to say.
I had them. Everyone else tell me what it's about as well. Like she can see dead people who are in the house.
People,
yeah,
and she actually the husband and wife. She actually likes them, and she tries to communicate with them, and she can. And then, of course, the family come involved, and there's money involved, and they want to use it as a way of getting people in and spending money. But the people who own the property don't want to sell it. They don't even though they're dead, they don't want it to pass hands. Her role in that is that conduit between the living and the dead, and then the characters that are played. It's one of those movies that you probably want to watch twice
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of those movies that's got so much in it that you can miss it very quickly. You know, they have upstairs in the upper of the house, which is locked. Like no one else can get in there. She can, but the rest of the family can't. And down on a table, they've got the whole estate in small form, like as a model.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing when you see it, and then it goes into different sizes and that. I think it's one of those. It's a must-see movie if you, from the point of view that it's a bit like in some ways. There's about 6 or 7 different elements to it that keep on running through the theme of the movie, and it's because of that you've got to see it. It's very well written and it's very well acted. I mean, that the quality of the movie actors just shows you how important they felt that show was, how that movie was, and that's an amazing cast.
Well, it's a Tim Burton film, and whilst I've there's no such thing as bad films, as we say on the show all the time. I'm very back and forth on Tim Burton. I find that the stuff that his original work is often very good.
Yep.
It's more when he takes another property and tries to make it and puts it to his own prism. That's where I have a bit of trouble, because I find that a lot of so for example, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Like not a terrible film, but also probably a little bit too dark going through the Tim Burton prism. Whereas his original work, like Corpse Bride, Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare Before Christmas, even though he didn't direct it, the ideas came from him. And of course, Beetlejuice I haven't seen, but I know that's his original work as well, and that's probably going to lend a lot of credibility to it. Whereas even the Batman films, even though I do like them, the Tim Burton Batman films are obviously created by a guy who doesn't care about Batman. Like he wants to look at the villains who are all dark and creepy and weird and monsters.
Yeah, and this is where this goes. It's and
which I like, by the way. I like dark and creepy and monsters.
Yeah.
It just makes it difficult to make your Batman interesting if you don't care about him.
And I think, like, when you're looking at movies and you're going, is this one I want to see? Now, I always, as I said, remember watching Little Shop of Horrors. Whilst it was something that, once again, quite gory in real world. I mean, flowers that swallow up people, pretty good stuff. This one was just one of those that the different characters in there and what was going on. And it's just, once again, if you don't want to see it, don't go and see it.
No, I do. There's no reason for you to not have seen this film. Like, I have no excuse. It's just probably just slipped me by. But Michael Keaton, who we haven't talked about yet, I don't think that guy is capable of a bad performance. Everything he's in, he's brilliant in. So I'm sure, it's just a matter of going in and watching. I'm sure he'll be great in this as well.
I think you're right. Look, as I said, he's a pretty out there guy. Oh, here we go. He's a bit about, goodness gracious me. You don't mind if I just choke for 5 minutes and I'll come back.
That's why I always have a bottle of water when I do a podcast. That way. That's it. I'll talk and fill the airways while you take a drink. There we go.
His character is really, it's almost like saying only he could do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the sort of character role it is. And thank you for bringing me back onto the movie in that area, because I didn't talk about him. But I just look at when I saw it,
it's very easy to get distracted by Winona Ryder. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going any further. Gosh, she's gorgeous. No, there's a lot of people like her. There's a lot of people. It's not about being gorgeous and all that, but what she does, she creates an environment where people want to watch her. And in that particular role that she does, I mean, she's the conduit between the living and the dead. And she takes that role really, really well. You've just got to watch it to see how good she is, because at the end of the day, it's those characters that actually make the movie.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Thank goodness, because I don't know whether I'm saying. Well, how are we going for time?
We're going fine. You got one more movie, but no, you're going fine for time.
Cool. The yes, the next one.
Last one. We're rounding out the list. It's been a strong list.
Thank you. As I said earlier, the 80s are symbolic and having unbelievable quality movies, unbelievable. And you sit there and you're thinking, what I try to do this time is go left of centre, and bring out something that was sort of had something to offer. Now, this one, I had everything, all my notes written down, and guess what? Can't find it. So now I'm going from memory, and goodness gracious me, where do we go there? I was going to tell you something, and did you know how much it cost? The film. This is going back to John Bullard, back to the Blues Brothers. The film went over budget. In fact, one scene cost $35 million.
I'm guessing that was a car crash scene. Like, it's got to be right. Like, that's John Landis. John Landis does big, bold things. That's kind of.
Do you reckon they got their money back?
No, I don't reckon.
Don't you?
No, I don't think that film. It's a cult film. I don't think it would have been a huge box office, because I could be wrong. Happy to be wrong, but I just don't think it was.
Maybe Google it, James. It's one of those things. I
can look it up for you, absolutely.
Because now, even I got to say, even the band.
I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong.
How much?
So it had a budget of $27 million approximately, and globally it made $115 million. So it absolutely was a smash hit. It made almost it made over 4 times its budget. Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? When you sit there, and probably because when you were growing up, the movie was already out.
Yeah,
and it was a huge. It was just huge. It was just, and because John Belushi was such a huge character for those who were following him, probably 20% of the people would have watched the movie because it was him. Could have been even more. But then again, having said that, the musicians that were in that was just enough to say, I think I should watch that. I think that would be a good idea for me to go and watch that. The last movie. Monty Python.
There are a couple of them in the 80s.
Yes. They had a couple of series, a couple of movies that they made, and The Holy Grail.
That one was at the tail end of the 70s. That was my first Monty Python movie, I think.
Life of Brian.
Very popular movie, Life of Brian.
Yep. Any more, James?
My personal favorite came out in 1973, I want to say, and that's now something completely different. And then there's one more that came out in the 80s, which I believe is on your list.
It's on my list. The Meaning of Life.
That's the one.
Yeah. This is one that even when this came out, it was challenging for lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Very challenging, because they were talking about things that had never been discussed before, and that was challenging for people because all of a sudden people were sort of confronted by songs, and you sit there and going, "Oh, is that what I heard them say?" The meaning of life wasn't like, if I go back, and as I think I said before, Monty Python was almost like an ensemble, going back with Monty Python and the Flying Circus. And the Flying Circus is like that ensemble who got together and did shows. And on TV, they'd be something that was also, animated as well, and was an amazing opening production. And though it's English humour really did stem from ensembles like the Goonies, they were just groups of people that used to do things which would have come out of university. So the universities used to have groups of people who would do stand up or whatever, however you want to confront it, and was probably responsible for some of the funniest work ever done. And so the Flying Circus Group had 6 main characters, and Graeme Chapman, he was probably the architect in some way. John Cleese, without a doubt, the funniest person in British humour, and maybe I'm overstating it. James, you and I went and saw him live.
Certainly did.
At the art centre, and the one thing that I absolutely loved it for was the fact that he was talking about people being politically correct, and he went on to say, "Well, I'm not going to be being politically correct here tonight." And then he went off and went in his tirade. And I think you just get to a stage, for people who are professional, this is their job. You just get sick of it all. An interesting bunch of people, Terry Gilliam and Eric Idle. Eric Idle, very funny man.
Eric Idle was my favourite Python growing up.
Yeah, me too.
And then, but as I've gotten older, I really, as I mentioned before, I really appreciate the frustration and anger of John Cleese. Also, I think Michael Palin is. I mean, they're all great. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Michael Palin's more like a travel agent. He's he's probably written more books on travel. And you've got Terry Jones, and Terry Jones is probably lesser than that. It's when they get together, it just brings that sort of thing. I mean, certain characters in certain shows, so bring out your dead, and they're walking through the streets with a cart behind, and people are throwing out the dead. I'm not dead yet. Just hop on. So this one is really having a crack at just about everything that's to do with the way of life. And they did. I had these notes, James. You reckon it's going to come up to me? But they had the sperm song. That was really good.
Yep. Every sperm is sacred.
Every sperm is sacred. And there you go. So this is something. This was a change of tact. I think Monty Python used to always get in trouble with the too-gooders of the world. You can't do this and you can't say that. They had the crosses on the mound and passing judgment. I think a lot of people who do religious type humour will often say to you, I met someone once who was a comedian, and he often used religious humour, and I talked to him, I asked him once, well, why do you do it? And he said, it's there. And he wasn't trying to justify what it was, because he didn't discriminate between what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. And as soon as you say, no, you can't do that, you're going to offend people at the end of the day. And who whether I think it's right or wrong, at the end of the day, it really is about making sure that you're not offending people, or you try to limit it. But once again, I think the church actually didn't mind it, because once again, it talked about issues that they weren't going to talk about, and in some ways that made them feel more comfortable. Whether it did or not, I don't know. But have you seen this, James?
I have. It's probably the one I don't know if it's the one I've seen the least. Obviously, Holy Grail and Now for Something Completely Different, the ones I've seen the most. Those two were on frequent rotation. I have seen. I don't remember much about. I remember Every Sperm is Sacred. I remember John Cleese giving a a demonstration on how to make love to a woman. I remember there's an obese man who explodes in a restaurant. So I remember bits and pieces of it, but my memory of this one is definitely hazier than the other ones.
I think the one with the restaurant scene where he just keeps on eating and eating and eventually explodes. I remember that because I reckon that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think that was really they took I just found here it says 6 male fish in a posh restaurant tank swim together casually and saying good morning to each other. Then see the friend Howard being eaten outside.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Yeah, you often, that's what I mean. Some of these things that you actually forget. The question is explored from the first sketch, The Miracle of Birth, which features a woman in labour being ignored by the doctors in favour of pressing the hospital, a medically clueless administration. And the Catholic Church talking about not doing their job properly, talks about contraception and sex for pleasure. Oh, who would have thought? And then that's why, once again, it's a movie that you should watch. Or if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it because it's challenging in the sense that I think if it's not challenging, it's not worthwhile watching. Even watching Top Gun can be challenging. Have you ever tried to fly a plane like that? Never.
No, it's true.
No,
You've made an excellent point there.
Thank you very much. Out of nowhere.
I do like films that challenge me. I don't think all films need to be challenging, but
no,
that's
got to be funny.
I was talking about this with someone the other day. I said, because I truly believe this is not a line. It's going to sound like a cheese line. I believe there are no bad films. Every film is someone's favorite film. So if that's the case, how can one film be bad? But the biggest crime a film can commit is being boring.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's not for me. That's fine. But if you're showing me something, if you're showing me what I want, fantastic. If you show me something different, excellent. If you show me something I've never seen before, great. If you challenge me, awesome. All of those things work. Just don't be boring. And if you are going to be boring, you better have a point to it all. Like get somewhere in the end.
I think the thing with some films is they're too long to get to the storyline. You sit there going, "Oh, where's it going?"
Oh my goodness, pardon me.
This is not one of them. And once again, I think that when people, and I think the church was pretty quick to get that. This is that like the Holy Grail, the Holy Grail when you talk about the coconuts.
Yeah.
There's always something that will always stand in your mind. You won't remember everything, but you just see these people walking like their horses, hitting coconuts. Got nothing to do with this movie, but it's true when you think about it. And you talk about these fish looking at the fish tank, and then they see one of theirs being eaten. They go, "Oh, very good." The way this is written is really looking on the outside into the world, and how things, sometimes in our own situation, you sit there and you from the outside you're saying, what are you looking at? What can you see? What is it important? Will it make a difference? And I think I end up on this one because I think that for many people it asks questions that people would never even talk about. And then to think that this is the 80s, this is when life started to become liberated, where we were coming out, from the 70s going into the 80s. This is going through the hippie stage, deep into the hippie stage by that time, where people were challenging things and trying to find out more about what's going on, and they just didn't accept things for what they were, but really wanted to know more about it. And quite often, when I'm sitting back and reflecting on life, I still go back to the 70s years and 80s in my life and thinking pretty much were the best years of my life. And why? Great movies, great music. And, as we were talking earlier about Olivia Newton-John, there's one person who had such an impact on the world, and you don't necessarily have to have liked her at all. But some of the music that she performed was unbelievable. The one thing that was really important about her, as far as music goes, she had the most pure voice. I was listening to her the other day, and I'm just thinking, you could hear every word. And that's amazing because sometimes you can't hear any of the words. And I did watch a bit of the tributes going on during the day. As I said, she was only 2 years older than me, and as a young kid growing up, I did see her a couple of times, and not that she actually knew who I was, and I wasn't going to go up there and say, "Yeah, here you go." That's not my fault. But you sit back and thinking, there's certain qualities, and she does have one of those resounding qualities of just always looked to be happy. Very a beautiful woman, especially as a young woman growing up. She was just like the kid next door. And I digress from where I was. But that was the era. I mean, you're born in an era, and then you make the most of what that era is going to be for you. That your years on this earth need to amount to something, and there's going to be things that really stick out as being significant. And I came through, I reckon, the best time for music. We saw the huge amount of change from not having any hair visible over your collar to having it halfway down your back, and challenging society and all its rules. And in some shape or form, with COVID and all that, a lot of our freedoms have been knocked around a bit. And you do know when you walk around the streets and that, and the theatres aren't like they used to be. And it's going to be a long, long time before it does. But all you got to do is go and get a good movie, sit down and watch it. And if you have got one that's your favourite, watch it again. Because I tell you, it takes you out of a place where you don't necessarily want to be sometimes. And you can have a good laugh. As I said, I've been watching movies. I've watching more movies just of recent days, and I didn't watch any of these shows before I spoke to you. Was that clearly obvious? Not really. The thing about these movies is that once you start talking, and as we did with Blues Brothers, that was a movie that we used to watch and loved. And the others that I'm keeping you up. Did I ever tell you the story about? No, I won't do that. I did that
for those listening who think that we're being rude to each other. It is currently after 10 o'clock at night. The recording of this show was delayed by the fact that Zoe would not go down to sleep. I've been looking after her by myself this evening, so and I've just been dealing with an unwell child for the last 2 weeks. So I had a lot less sleep than normal. So I am dedicated to getting the content generated, but I am a little bit on the sleepy side. I let a yawn slip before, which I was trying not to do, but no, Dad's
I was
not
aware
being rude.
of it, but I just ignored it. And I'm going.
He's not being rude to me, and I'm not being rude to him. We're just pushing through.
It's probably a good time to finish, James.
Well, you got a great list. I love your list. I think it's really strong, even though I haven't seen one of them. You're now the third or fourth person to mention it, so it looks like I got to get my act together and watch it.
Yep.
You brought 3 new movies to the list. We've never talked about Rain Man before. We'd never talked about Temple of Doom before. We never talked about Meaning of Life before. So that was really good as well. It's solid. And the one thing that really unites all of your films, or a common theme in all your films, is they're all very much not comedies, but there's a very strong, humorous arc throughout all of these films. And a lot of them are very adventure driven, like Blues Brothers and Rain Man are obviously road trip films. Temple of Doom, whilst not maybe a driving film, but it's very much a road trip film as well, as much as it's just kind of going from place to place to place. It's a solid list. I think you should be very happy with it. It's a very good list.
Look, I've got to say I am happy with it. I really am. And I think when you have a chance to sit back and think about things, and I deliberately went to movies that probably weren't the favourites, because sometimes you overlook something that's actually got some gems in it. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a good list. I think we've only got one or two guests left, and then we're going to be done with the 80s.
Goodness me.
And then we're going to be heading into the 90s. Well, we might go backwards. We might go into classics, movies pre-80s. Or, we might do some horror for Halloween in October. We'll see how we go. Before we finish up, we have to do the rapid fire question round. We do it every single week. You weren't given these questions beforehand, so you'll just have to think on your feet, which is fine. You did this last time quite well, if I remember correctly. So first of all, which movie from the 80s to you is the definitive 80s film? Which film screams 80s?
Blues Brothers.
Yeah, that's one. I mean, look, honestly, Blues Brothers might be the answer to most of these questions. The way it's designed is you could just use the same question over and over again.
Yeah.
Which 80s film to you has the best theme song or soundtrack?
Oh. Blues Brothers.
Yeah, it is. That was my answer too.
You can't have that many musicians into a show and ignore it.
And look, there are some great theme songs out there. Ghostbusters, obviously, very good theme song.
Yeah.
Breakfast Club has some great music in it as well. There's some really good soundtracks in 80s movies. 80s is kind of the birth of the soundtrack. But I agree, Blues Brothers. Okay, so which actor or actress for you defines the 80s?
Oh, that's a little harder. I'm going out on a limb.
Go for it. Let's hear you on a limb.
I'm just going to say, for what she did with the character to make that whole thing come together, would have been
Winona Ryder?
Renata White.
She had a good career in the 80s. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go Tom Cruise because you mentioned him before.
Yeah, I know.
But Winona Ryder's a great call, and no one's given her day in the sun yet, so I'll take it.
When you watch it, and you know how the character is working, you're going to go, well, no, I'm just going to wait and see what you think, because to me, I reckon that's the difference in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's she's had a couple of hits in the 80s. I'm trying to think. Edward Scissorhands was 90s, but what else did she do in the 80s? She's had a few in there. It wasn't just Beetlejuice.
No, she's got a few up there.
Oh yeah, she was in heaps.
Yeah.
So many. She was in Heathers and Beetlejuice. Oh, she's in a couple of 80s films. But yeah, no, I'll take it. Absolutely. And then she's in Stranger Things, which is a love letter to the 80s. So she's definitely a bit of an 80s face there. I'll take it. Great. Alrighty. Switching gears a little bit. We think about all kinds of modes of transport in the 80s is kind of the rise of like the special car and the spaceship and the time machine. Which is the best 80s vehicle?
Let me tell you. The movie, there was a series of the movies, and you're going to have to help me here. And they had the DeLorean.
Yes, Back to the Future, the DeLorean. Absolutely. That is the most popular answer. I think everyone has said DeLorean. Absolutely. Yeah. Good one. Pardon me. Excellent. And then the last question. We're at the end. You've made it. You survived. Last time I asked you which movie should they never, ever remake. We're changing gears here. Which 1980s film do you think they should make again?
That is hard. To remake it, it's either to see something in it that was missed in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a rapid fire question, not such a good answer.
No one ever answers rapidly. Don't worry. Maybe it's just a film that, is great, but young audiences aren't seeing it anymore, and you want them to be like, hey, we're going to remake it so the kids will see it. It could be anything like that. Maybe it's not a film that was bad. Maybe it's just a chance to reintroduce it. Or maybe it was terrible and you want to give it another shot.
When we think about it, I think Xanadu was overrated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who do you cast? So obviously Olivia Newton-John, as you mentioned, unfortunately, just passed away recently, so she wouldn't be in the remake. Who would you cast in the role of Olivia Newton-John for this new version?
Well, that's a very good point. And I think it won't be Celine Dion.
I don't know a lot of young pop stars these days. I do have an idea though. I've got one in my head, and I'll run it.
There's a couple. Christina Aguilera.
Well, she. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Look, I'm not saying no. This is your movie. Yes, she could. She's old. Yeah. She's older now than Olivia Newton-John was then, but that's fine. You can do an older. I don't know what the character's name was.
The only thing is that once again, the thing about Olivia Newton-John was that her singing was almost perfect in the sense that you could hear every word.
Mm.
And you've got a person who's got a huge range. So you're going to have if you're going to have someone do that, because Xanadu's that song itself is unbelievably high, and so you've got to have someone who's got the voice range, but also a purity about them. And who do you think?
Now, I don't know what she's like as an actor, but she does have a voice, and she is quite artsy. And I know that it wasn't a space movie, but it was very science fiction-y fantasy, and she's very like that. I'm thinking like an Ariana Grande, like maybe.
Do you know something that was through my mind, and I'm absolutely dead serious.
Yeah,
I was trying to work out because when she was on Saturday Night Live,
very funny.
She's amazing, and her range is unbelievable.
Yeah,
so I agree.
All right, that's what we're doing. Hollywood remakes Xanadu with Ariana Grande. That's another film sold. We've sold a lot of films on this podcast, but we haven't seen any of the money yet. Excellent. That is it. You have made it from start to finish. You actually answered all the questions. So I think last time you had to skip a couple. You answered all of them this time. Well done.
Yeah.
So that is going to do it for this week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I want to thank my dad once again for coming back, Graeme Chalmers. He'll be back again, absolutely. Hopefully we won't have to wait 20 episodes next time. We'll bring him in sooner. He did a wonderful job. I'm sure you guys will all agree. Thank you for listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, I Was a Teenage Film Snob on Instagram. I post up photos daily of Blu-rays, and I talk about reviews, and I post the podcast as well. You can listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor FM. But until then, as I always say, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.
Thanks very much, James.